All right, y'all.
Mhm.
We are live in the studio here in my apartment, and I've got a very special guest live in his house, his studio, on the phone right now. This is a man who means a lot to me. He helped me a lot as I was a young kid going to see him in his concerts in a band called Knifedance. And he was actually performed. He was the second band on the first show I ever booked, which was the Laughing Hyenas Knifedance, and lost on April 9th, 1989 at the Continental Ballroom in Erie, Pennsylvania. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got Tom Dark on the line. What's up, Tom?
Hey, what's up, my man? This is Matt. Oh, man, you mentioned one of my favorite bands of all time, Laughing Hyenas. Oh,
That's one of my
I
favorite.
love those guys.
One of my favorite bands of all time too. And did you see that John posted up yesterday that somebody posted up a bunch of old Laughing Hyenas concerts and basement footage on YouTube just like last week or recently?
Yeah. Yeah, they're coming out with like all this stuff, and I'm so glad Jack White reissued those albums through Touch and Go, which means a lot to me because it's like John. I've known John since 1983.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I knew about NA Negative Approach years back, but the thing is he was kind of apprehensive about like re-releasing that stuff, and I was like, oh, come on, man, you guys were like one of the greatest bands ever. And then finally came to terms with, they released it along with some unreleased tracks, which I was glad to hear. They did that. So
yeah, I don't ever buy reissues, but I bought all those. I got all those.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
No, I said I don't ever buy reissues, but I bought all those. They did a really good job at that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I was like very, very, very happy, it got reissued. Plus the fact I'm kind of digging through my files, especially like a lot of Knifedance stuff. I kind of like want to maybe release some stuff we did with, unfortunately, one of my buddies who was a Knifedance, Andrew Lessica, he passed away like a couple weeks ago.
What?
And, yeah, Andrew Lessica, he's the first guitarist.
I know. I'm sorry.
He was also in the 98 version of Stepsister.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went on to, he did a solo thing called St. Andrew, which was just him and his guitar playing blues music. And then he formed a band called Snake Handlers, which is like, I think, a 3-piece blues band. I heard about it. I never got to see, unfortunately. But unfortunately, he had some health problems along the way. So, but his day came, and it took him a couple weeks ago, which I was very sad to hear. He was when he was on, he was a very gifted guitarist, and all that early Knifedance stuff, like songs like Catwalk, Driven, what else? God's Eye. I mean, he came up with all those incredible riffs,
Man.
So, yeah. He was definitely, he had the look, and he had the, he was definitely like a rock and roll blues guitarist. Like his early influence were like totally like Stooges, New York Dolls, Rolling Stones. I mean, just, he had all that early, like pre-punk, glam, everything kind of influences. So he came from that kind of like background. So we were happy to have him.
Man,
then we moved on with my brother, which gave it more of a, I don't know, metalish sound or hardcore sound, whatever you want to call it, So we still stuck to our punk roots.
Yeah, I miss Scott too, man, for sure. Why don't we take a quick musical break? I'm going to play the first song I ever heard from y'all, Word to Dan Allen. I'm pretty sure it's his fault, man. I got turned on to Knifedance. Let's play Catwalk. I'm pretty sure Catwalk was the first one. And we're going to come back, and I want to really get into some history with you, man. You're tuned into the Pushermania's podcast. I got Tom Dark on the line. This is the band Knifedance. Not his first band, but this is the first song I ever heard from Knifedance. It's called Catwalk.
Who do I see in the shadows? Who do I see in the front? Hit that girl from the way.
All right, man. I have like very vivid memories of y'all performing that song live. I saw Knifedance maybe more than any other band as a teenager for sure. Like you guys played with everybody. I saw you in Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Erie, Houston, Austin. I think I went to Austin when y'all went to Austin, or maybe
we
not.
went to Austin. We didn't play Austin.
Right.
That was on the
So I didn't go
second
with
tour in '89.
Yeah, in '89 you stayed with me though. You stayed with me in Houston. You played the Axiom.
Correct.
And I just moved to
I think
Houston.
we played with Fearless Iranians from Hell.
Oh my god!
As I recall,
crazy. Yes, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, man, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I want to talk about you as a person, man. I was a kid, probably 14, 15 years old the first time I saw you, and I booked the first show I ever booked. I was 17, but weren't you booking shows in Cleveland? You were like 14. 15. You were young.
Probably 15, as I recall.
Yeah.
We got influenced by, at the time when I had my first band, The Dark, we couldn't really get into clubs that were like 18 and over because we were like so young. But with Mike Hudson of the Pagans, he managed The Dark for like a year. But then,
man,
about 82, about 82, 83, that time period, hardcore came about, and some guys down in Akron, Vince Ranson, and who's an artist, and the band Zero Defect started putting on these shows called Club Hell, which is like an all ages kind of thing. And so we got the idea to like rent out halls because like, well, we don't need bars, you know, because we're like underage. So I started promoting shows with local bands, and then I brought in, I did this one show which got shut down. It actually was a benefit for this compilation album I put out in 1983 called The New Hope. With Negative Approach, Agnostic Front, Cause for Alarm from New York, and my band The Dark, along with some like Soylent Green, who later became No Pro with a new singer.
Man.
So I was doing hall shows throughout the years up until about maybe 89. I put on some other shows, let's say Laughing Hyenas, Ignition with Alex Mackay, Chris Ball in the Face from DC.
I was at the show y'all did at the Sonic Temple in Pittsburgh. It was Laughing Hyenas, Ignition, and Knifedance.
Oh, that was a friggin' great show.
That was amazing.
So I remember the next day. Yeah, that was the next day we had Ignition. I did that hall show with them. Yes, actually, it was in a suburb of Cleveland. It was in South Euclid.
Oh, okay.
And that was like, I can't even remember. That probably was like 89. We became friends with like all those bands, which I'm still friends with today. And everything, you know. So yeah, I started doing hall shows at an early age, and then.
But when you were like when you were a little kid, when you were a kid, like a teenager, before doing the hall shows, I mean, were you seeing bands like the Pagans?
I did see the Pagans. Yes, at one point, I believe that was '79, and I remember Johnny Drummett, who ran the Jerome Record Store, who also managed the Pagans. He had a thing in Lakewood, Ohio, a west side suburb of Cleveland, called Destroy All Record Stores Party. And he had the Pagans, he had the Kneecappers, he had Bernie and the Invisibles, he had the Styrenes or Styrene Money, my God, and the Chronics. So I got to see all those bands for free. And what stood out to me was the Pagans and the Kneecappers. And I remember those. A lot of people were pogoing, jumping up and down, kind of throwing bottles, things of that nature. So that was like, whoa, you know. And when at an early age, I used to go to the Dome on a regular basis and just spend my money on punk rock singles and albums, whatever I could afford. And I still have that stuff to this day.
Was Chris Yarmock in the Kneecappers?
Yes, he was.
That was his original band. That
Kneecappers,
was before the Easter Monkeys.
Correct. Believe it or not, the Kneecappers were originally called the Dead Kennedys.
What?
And yes, they were originally called the Dead Kennedys, and they had to change their name because at that time, most of the bars around Cleveland were run by Irish guys, Irish Catholic guys,
right,
who didn't take too kindly to a name like that, so they changed it to the Kneecappers. And then, of course,
and the Irish were totally
about
fine
a
with
year
that. They were
later-
like, "Yeah, we understand that. We understand that."
yeah. And so Jello, about a year later, all of a sudden there was a Dead Kennedys in San Francisco.
Huh.
So I think he stole that name. I mean, I don't know if he would admit that or not. I've never seen an interview where it's like, yeah, we stole the name. But basically, the name is about a death of a generation. Everything changed after John F. Kennedy got shot, or should I say assassinated.
Right.
So that's what it is. But yes, Chris was in the Kneecappers, and then he went on to the Easter Monkeys, an all-star, another great Cleveland band.
Yes.
Which I think around the country has been underrated. And I'm so glad Hit and Run released the album Splendor of Sorrow, along with the Smallville Records, which has the original mix. On Hit and Run, it was remixed, but I think the original mix was better, which Smallville did a great job along with the DVD of one of their rare performances. I believe that was shot at the Cleveland Agora when they opened up for X from Los Angeles. They were on tour. I remember that show too.
And Charlie was in that band who later we came in, joined Knifedance.
Correct. It just turned out that the Easter Monkeys were, kind of on their last leg.
Mm-hmm.
And my band, The Dark, was on their last leg. So Charlie approached me about forming a band with him. And I was in awe because the Easter Monkeys were one of my favorite bands. And he had been in a band called The Impalers before the Easter Monkeys. And these guys were like in the early stages of punk rock. So when you're younger and you're looking up to these guys, you're just like, And at that time, we had no guitar player. It was just David Araka, who was in The Dark with me. And then from there, I think Sean Saley, who later went on to, Government Issue. What else? Oh, Pentagram. But in the early days of hardcore, he was in the original Starvation Army, Agitated, just to name a few. Anyway, David, it was kind of like one of those back and forth things where David quit, Sean took over, then Sean got the call to join Government Issue, so he left, David came back, and then eventually, because he left, I believe, he didn't like playing really out-of-town shows, he didn't like traveling. We put in an ad, and we got Anthony Petty. And so with that came Andrew Lessica. We put an ad in the paper, and he had just come back from L.A. Fascinating character because he was in a band called Terminal Vermin that was in Bowling Green. And believe it or not, they played one of their first shows with Negative Approach, the Necros, in Todd Swallow's basement at his mom's. So that's before those guys started getting in the clubs and everything. But getting back to Terminal Vermin, eventually they moved out of Bowling Green, Ohio, and moved to Los Angeles, California. So they were there when the Germs and the early formation of Black Flag and all that stuff was happening. So he played with some guys that later became the Fiends. They put out an album. They had that song "Bob Hope Is Dead." The chicks from L7, the Los Angeles L7. God, trying to think. He had so many stories about the Mask and Canterbury Apartments and all that kind of stuff out there. They kind of knew the characters. Oh, he also played in. If you check on New Wave Theater. He played guitar in that band Dead Hippie. Damn. So he's on that version of it. Yeah. So Andrew kind of had some history going on. and everything. But he came back to Cleveland, answered her ad, and I remember meeting him at the Fantasy nightclub. And he had the look, good-looking guy, very, you know, he was dressed very rock and roll, boots on, jeans. He's a very tall guy. And, but he had definitely rock and roll riffs. And he was in Knifedance between 1985 and 87. And then he kind of disappeared. We decided to move on. And I think at the time my brother was in False Hope. And it was either he
Your brother was in,
or
I
they
didn't
were
know
just,
your brother was in False Hope.
Yeah. There was a lot of people that were in False Hope.
Yeah, because
My
the guys
brother
that
was
were
in
playing,
a lot of bands.
not to jump ahead because I want to stay sort of in order, but the guys who came in on the Stocking Ground 7-inch, weren't they also in False Hope?
Yes, that would have been Sam and Chris Smith.
Right.
They were in False Hope. Actually, there was some people that were in and out. I think they had David Rock was in False Hope, I believe. Greg Concassi. But that was like one of those in and out. Like my brother was in it.
Mm-hmm.
He played on one of their first demos, and then he either quit or they wanted to move on and get a new guitar player, whatever the reason being. So,
all right.
I never got involved in that, and I never really got the full story and what happened with that. So I asked my brother to play in Knifedance, and he was free, and he's like, sure. He just wanted to join the band, and he was happily joining Knifedance. So that was in like about 87. And
Which
he was in
which I don't
Knifedance
think I
till
saw
the end.
Knifedance without your brother. So I mean, until he quit, but like I never saw David Rock. I don't think era Knifedance.
No, he was in Knifedance briefly.
Okay.
He played on one demo we did. Gary Lupico, another gentleman that he was in the Kneecappers, passed away. He did it on a 2 or 4 track. I still have it, and that's something I want to release because I have that demo with Andrew and David Rock on drums. Then I have a full-length album that we did at Great Tracks Recording Studio, which most of those songs are on that first 12-inch EP we released called Who Then Is Sane.
Yeah. Well,
So,
man, I want to get back. I want to talk about the Dark. I want to talk about the Guns, and then I want to get into Knifedance. But we talked about the Easter Monkeys. Why don't we play Cheap Heroin? Let's play Cheap Heroin, take a quick musical break, and come back, and then we're going to keep going right down the line. You are tuned into the Pushermania podcast, Real Talk with Matt Sonzala and Tom Dark. This is something, Tom, you was not in this band, the Easter Monkeys, but he first, of course, turned me on to to this band and released their only album before Smogville released the full package on CD. This is a song called Cheap Heroin.
started. Fresh supermarket. Such a deal, man, no, pass it up. Buying bread from the supermarket. Oh, right into frozen hot dogs and cheap heroin. Cheap heroin. Right from the supermarket. Cheap heroin. Cheap heroin. Supermarket.
Now, man, dude, I grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania, not far from Cleveland, so I was fortunate enough to be able to come down when I was a certain age. I could go to Peabody's and places like that, but I can't even imagine, like, growing up your age in Cleveland, the 70s and 80s. Like, what was the first punk show you saw?
Ooh, first punk show. If you want to consider it a punk show, I think the first punk show I ever saw was, believe it or not, I was in 6th grade,
Man.
and my first thing was the Stooges.
What?
And yes, well, no, I didn't see the Stooges, but Iggy Pop was coming, and I really wanted to see Iggy Pop, and that's when he came out of the Stooges and he released The Idiot with David Bowie relaunching his career.
Right.
And so I wanted to see Iggy Pop. So my dad says, okay, you want to see this guy, I'll take you down there, but you got to earn, good grades in order to see him. And it was like really funny because my dad told me later, he goes, I was just interested in what you wanted to see and why you were so interested in this. And it was like really funny because he heard about Iggy Pop and the whole Stooges thing. And he was like, I'm not staying for this show if this guy cuts himself up with glass or, punctures himself with drumsticks or vomits on stage or whatever it is. And I'm like, okay. So we went, and I remember there was a lot of guys still in high, platforms and stuff that had like David Bowie t-shirts on because David Bowie was playing on keyboards. And
on that
show? Remember on that show.
Damn.
And so we're in a small club, and Blondie opened up. She was on her first tour, and they had just released X Offerings. And so she came out, and she was great, and then came and sat in the audience. And I was a table over from her, and she was sitting there with a boyfriend, Chris Stein, the guitar player. And of course, she looked beautiful and everything. And then
in 6th grade, if I was anywhere near Debbie Harry, I would have had a heart attack. Literally, a little kid has a heart attack right on the ground, just dead.
Oh yeah, I was sitting to me, I was like, oh my God, it's like she just came out of the audience, sat down. I mean, she still looks great to this day.
Yeah, that's my first love for sure. It was my first love.
Oh yeah, but it was Iggy Pop with the Hunt brothers, should I say, Soupy Sales Kids. Wow. On what was it? I don't know, bass and drums, and I think they hit this guy Rick Gardner, I think, on guitar, if I have that correct, with David Bowie on drums. And of course, they're playing the riffs of Raw Power, and Iggy Pop comes out, and it's like, man, that was like just seeing him do what he did just the way he moved his body, the way he sang, everything was, to me, was like, I want to be like that guy. I want to do what that guy does. Because it was so hypnotizing to watch. It was like amazing to watch. And you know what? I remember I got my ears blown out a little bit, and my dad actually stayed for the encores, and he was hypnotized by it too. And I remember the last thing we saw, he did an encore. I think it was "I Want to Be Your Dog," and he was doing like, he's tumbling on the stage and hauling and all this kind of stuff. And my dad said at the end of the night, he goes, "Now that guy's a performer. He knows how to perform."
Man.
I remember just going back in the car, back to my house, my ears were ringing and everything. And I was just like, it was so worth it to see it. So I guess I could say that was actually my punk show, if you want to consider that a punk show. But hey, he's considered the godfather of punk. I mean, what more could you?
Yeah, that's
he to me. He was the guy that paved the way for everything that we're all doing today.
Everything.
With you know what I'm saying? Think about it.
Yeah.
It's just like he had the guts to go out and do what he did, and he did it at a time when nobody was doing that stuff. So he was ahead of his time. And look at the albums the Stooges did. Look at some of his solo albums he's done. I think The Idiot, especially Lust for Life, are fantastic albums.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a big deal. I mean, Funhouse by the Stooges is one of my all-time favorite albums. I know everybody. I like Raw Power too, but Funhouse to me had a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yep.
And that is a phenomenal album in my book, and it was so ahead of its time. It's like, whoa,
man.
So I would say him, and like somebody like Alice Cooper. Believe it or not, my mom turned me on to Alice Cooper.
Yeah, mine too. My parents did too.
Oh, I loved Alice Cooper, and I'm talking about the group.
Yep.
And I like some of his solo stuff, but I remember I went out the next day, and the very first Alice Cooper album I thought was Easy Action,
mm-hmm.
which is like a really weird album, because Killer's the main thing with all the hits and everything on it. But,
right, but the first two records Frank Zappa put out. Frank Zappa put out those first two records when it was Alice Cooper was the band, and that was a totally different Alice Cooper than what it became.
Oh yeah,
but I can't front like I didn't love Alice Cooper. Was my first concert was Kiss at the Richfield Coliseum in '79 on like their worst album tour on the stupid Dynasty tour. My first show was Kiss, but then I saw Alice Cooper with my mom right after that.
Mm-hmm.
And
wow,
and I was 8. I was 7 when I saw Kiss and 8 when I saw Alice Cooper. But the first two records were too early for me. I was too young to be hip to the first two records till later in life.
Same here. I mean, some people, will be like, "That was your first Alice Cooper album?" I'm like, yeah. I mean, I think they were building up what they later became,
mm-hmm.
Because they were just, to me, so far out there, along with Stooges and David Bowie and everything. I'm going to give a reference to my wife, Scary Ellen, as she's known on the airwaves on WCSB, Cleveland State, 89.3.
I listen to WCSB. I listen to her and to Derek's show.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
She actually saw the Stooges and Slade back in the day, and she saw Kiss open up for the New York Dolls.
What?
Okay, and yeah, So if you ever want to interview her separately, she could tell you tales,
Man.
So, and, she remembers things like, she was there when the Police came to Kent, at this place of Rathskeller, when they did their famous so-called tour in that station wagon.
Man.
So I did not see that. I'm just bringing up like early stuff. Because it's like funny now, because kids that get into Black Flag are like, "You saw Black Flag?" I'm like, "Yeah, we saw Black Flag." We saw the original Circle Jerks, or we saw this, or Negative Approach,
mm-hmm.
or the original members. But every generation will see different things.
Yep.
There's still good bands out there, and people, I still go kind of by I really like. I'm glad John's doing the negative approach thing.
It's crazy because
doing it all over the
dude,
world.
that could go. I mean, if it wasn't John, I mean, the human being that he is, man, it could go so wrong. Like to see negative approach now, raging as hard as they rage, it's so good. Still, it's so good. It's maybe not 1982, but it goes so hard. They destroy it. Like I've seen the negative approach like 6 times as an adult, and it's just always killer. But then you know what I didn't do?
I know it.
You know what I didn't do? Like I've been talking about this a little bit. In this last year, I kind of already self-isolated before all this shit happened. I kind of was like, I'm sick of going out. I'm sick of all this shit here. You know what I mean? Like Austin, I don't want to go out to all this. And Negative Approach played, and they were playing in a room that was 100 capacity. And I was like, on a Sunday, and I was like, man, I should go see them. I should go say hello. But then I was like, man, somebody's going to die in that little ass room. And I'm lazy. It's Sunday. Man, that was the night Jay Mascis played with them. I didn't even know. I missed it. I mean, that happened before, but that happened in other places too, but it happened here in Austin. So that's what it makes me think, like, don't miss these opportunities. And right now, this whole situation has got me thinking more and more and more about that. But man, I can't, I'm one of those kids who said that to you back in the day. I was like, I didn't get to see Black Flag, but that was another thing when Flag played with Keith on the vocals and they played Sound on Soundfest here in Austin. I was like, these dudes are pushing, these dudes are 60. You know what I mean? Pushing 60 and killing it. They destroyed. That show was so good.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great that bands are getting back together or reuniting, whatever. I mean, Scary Ellen, my wife, and I saw Flag. Yeah. Not that I'm dissing Greg Ginn's version of what he calls Black Flag. I don't know.
No comparison. No comparison. No comparison.
There is no comparison.
No.
But Flag, was like, I thought was great. It's just like, of course, I have memories like when they came out with, Henry, and then there's like some people saw him with Dez in the early days. And Dez is still an amazing guy because I saw him, Misfits, with Jerry Only, and but the thing is, it was great. But it was like so weird because Scary and I were standing at the back of the bar. It was at the Grog Shop, which is in Cleveland Heights, east side suburb of Cleveland, and there was people there that were like had read about them or knew about them, but had never seen them. So they're coming out of the pit, like pounding their chest, and they're like Black Flag and all screaming all this kind of stuff. And to me, it's just like, not that I'm saying I'm better than them, but I saw them. They're just, it was just like, I could tell them listening to Black Flag was like the first time I heard Black Flag. You know what I'm saying? That like, holy shit, this is like groundbreaking.
It was groundbreaking. Tell me about the first time you saw them.
First time I saw them, well, originally the Dark was supposed to open up for Black Flag, which we did play the show in Wadsworth, Ohio. It was in an old movie theater. And Vince Rancet, the promoter artist, put it on. Unfortunately, Black Flag's van broke down.
Damn.
In Canada. So they didn't make the show, but all the local bands played. There's Offbeats, Urban Mutants, Zero Defects, Agitated. I'm trying to think. If I would see, it had to be at the Pop Shop in downtown Cleveland, which was originally called The Mistake. Now, when it was The Mistake, at that time, there was like, you could not, they didn't have all ages there. And that's when Dev came. And I remember the adults opened up. And I couldn't get into that show, but I had heard about it. And it was like one of those things where I was underage. I was like, man, I wish I could go, blah, blah, blah. But then they changed singers because Dez wanted to play second guitar, so they got Henry. And I knew about Henry. I knew about SOA and his original band. And so that's why I went to see him, and I thought, with Henry, I mean, I like all the versions of Black Flag. Some people like Dez better, and they thought Henry ruined it or something. But as far as I'm concerned, Henry, he worked his ass off to do what he had to do, you know, and he put up with a lot of shit. But to me, he's a very in your face front man, you know. And I do like Henry. I never got to see Black Flag, you know, with Keith Morris or anything. But that
Right.
I wasn't living out in L.A.
No.
And I didn't see him with Dez, but I just saw him with Henry till the very end. So it had to be at the Pop Shop, you know.
Right.
But those guys, besides their sound, that whole touring thing, they open up the door for touring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we didn't know anything about touring. It's just like, find a phone number, find a hall, find a club. You had those listings in Max Rock and Roll, or you had this networking system where people wrote letters. You know, it's like, call this guy, ask this guy, he'll put on a show for you. You know, and you're just like, okay, buy a van, go out, da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, you kind of like were learning as you went along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And the Dark, my first band, as far as we went anywhere, you know, around Northeast Ohio, the farthest we went was maybe Pittsburgh and then like Athens, Ohio. Athens, Ohio, that's a really long drive from Cleveland. That was like our last show, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like Knifedance, we did 2 tours, one in 88 and one in 89.
Yep.
We were supposed to do a third tour in 90, but unfortunately, we didn't do it because the members didn't want to tour. Or something. It was at the last minute. It was like very strange.
Right.
And so that's when I put an end to Knifedance. So, but I just, like I said, it was just like, for some odd reason, Black Flag was like, they did all this stuff, and it was just like, okay, you want to do this? This is how you do it. And so we're like, I think that's what opened up the doors for everybody, you know?
Man, for real.
If you know, yeah. That's what I think. I mean, back then, even like I was reading about the Pagans,
Mm-hmm.
they did out of town shows, but it was like they didn't have a van. They just got in their cars and just drove, which is like funny now because I'm kind of like in that, you know, if we do play out of town, that's what I'm doing. We don't have a van. Black Static Guy, that's my new band.
Mm-hmm.
So, but touring is definitely like it's an experience, but it's a very hard thing. You know, to me, touring is just like a blur. You just drive, drink a lot of coffee, if that's your thing, and you get there, wait around, and you get in the club, you do your sound check. There's a lot of waiting around, then you play, and then after that, you know, in between, you talk to people, sell some merchandise, that is, if you have it.
Mm-hmm.
Get paid, whatever money you can get, or if you have a guarantee, because you can draw,
Mm-hmm.
and then you crash somewhere, and then move on to the next town the next day.
Right.
And that's the way I remember it in 88 and 89. So
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot more organic back then, but I still toured to this day with Devin the Dude over in Europe a bit, and it's that process. Get up, get to the next city, wait around, do the show every day. But it's part of my livelihood. I love it, man. I love staying on the road. Now, man, I'm looking at. I've got your the 2 CD set of The Dark. You know, this is before my time. I didn't know what I'm looking at the pictures in here, and you and a young Robert Griffin, man, y'all look like. I mean, this is like the straight up. You guys must have been either the cool kids in high school or the kids that nobody would talk to. I can't tell. I mean, Cleveland was a rock and roll town. They might have liked you. You might have been liked. In certain cities, I bet you guys would have been the kids that nobody understood.
I don't think we were the cool kids. I think we were like kids that were like our own kind of world that nobody knew about.
Right.
That's what I think. Because the bands we liked, and you have to remember, punk rock and hardcore later were such a foreign thing to kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're in the suburbs, and we're around either kids that are popular, preppy kids, things of that nature. And you had like maybe some, you know, burnout kids. Hey, you listen to your Black Sabbath, your Led Zeppelin, that kind of thing. Chicken Chong albums. which we could relate to. But the stuff nobody knew what we were about or what we're talking about, what we're listening to. I mean, everything for the dark everything was involved in music. We talked about music. We collected music. Everything was about that. And so, in my opinion, Robert Griffin was a friggin' genius because he put the majority of those songs together with lyrics, the way it was played. My brother and David contributed to, any kind of bass things you hear of the dark. That would be all my brother came up with those riffs. I wrote some lyrics, but Robert wrote the majority of the lyrics. And we combined a punk hardcore sound mixed with a lot of gothy death rock stuff. We for some odd reason, at that time, we really liked horror movies. And we liked 45 Grave, the first Christian Death album. And we liked that one TSOL, Dance With Me, I believe it was called, album. And we liked that element. So Robert knew how to combine that stuff. And just listening to it now is incredible to me. And the fact that how young Scott and David were when they were in that band. I mean, Robert and I were young, but these kids were 12, 13 when they were in that band. So it was just and we wrote a lot of fucking songs. So it was
that picture on the picture in the living room, on the back of the cover of the booklet, is that Scott on bass?
Yes.
Oh my God.
That my brother played bass in the dark. He played guitar and Knifedance, and then he played drums in Stepsister. So he was an all around musician.
He was in the Guns too, right?
Correct. He played guitar. He and David Araka, who were also in the dark.
Yep.
They formed the Guns at the same time.
Okay.
Almost in a way, the Guns were together before the dark because they, my brother and David Araka, they were both partners in crime, basically. That Scott, my brother, that was his best friend, partners in crime kind of thing. They jammed together. Dave was always on drums. My brother was always on guitar. He dabbled a little bit, I think, on bass, but then by 82, they were doing the dark thing, with us, but they wanted to do a little side thing of theirs, which later became the dark. I mean, what am I saying? The Guns. That became the Guns. And so from there on out, they went from a 2-piece to a 3-piece with Sean Saley. And then near the end, they added Scott Silverman and Bob Reese to the band, which became more of a metalish sound. I think that's when the crossover stuff, when Metallica came along and you kind of listen, they would listen to Venom and Celtic Frost and all that kind of stuff. They were into it. The more you learn your instrument, you're oh, well, we want to do this now. So that became thrash metal crossover stuff.
Right. Now I have, like I said, I have the dark the package, the CD package. But did y'all know you were on some compilations? But did y'all ever release an album or a tape back then?
No. We were going to release an album, which is the majority of the studio recording you hear from Island Recording Studios, which we did in North Royalton. Basically, before that thing was released, we were on a bunch of compilations. We were on There's More cassette tape. We were on the Cleveland Confidential album, which Mike Hudson put out. And then later, after we broke up, we were on that. They pelted us Rocks and Garbage, which
that was a good one.
Spin Magazine at the time reviewed and gave us a good review.
Yep. Yeah, that was one you could actually find. You could find that in record stores, even in Erie. That was definitely around. That was a good record.
Most definitely. It's just that I think Brian from Grand Theft Audio, the label, he put out hardcore stuff from that time period in the 80s. That somehow he tracked down my number. I picked up the phone. I'm like, hello. He's like, hi, is this Tom Dark? I'm like, yes. He's like, this is Brian from Grand Theft Audio. Now, I had never heard of this label. When you think of Grand Theft Audio, you kind of think of that game. Mm-hmm. But I think he spells it differently. Well, he was interested in, he talked to me about the New Hope, but he was interested in the bands that were on the New Hope, like Zero Defects, Offbeat, Agitated. But then he talked to me about the Dark, and it just so happened at the time, the relationship was like, okay, I want to do a Dark CD. So I'm like, okay. So I sent him everything I had, and this went on for a while, and then he finally released the double CD, which I think is incredible. And then he wanted to do the Guns, but unfortunately, the CD market took a nosedive. Mm-hmm. So he was kind of like, at the last minute, he kind of like wanted to do it on vinyl. But then he decided, I believe at that time, he had put out like something like 43 releases. That's a lot of releases for a guy just doing this on his own, mm-hmm. And dealing with bands from the past, digging up stuff. So I know the Dark did do a reunion in the summer of 2006 for the Cleveland Screaming, I guess you could say, concert series. So,
and that's when the CD
unfortunately,
came out,
David Araka. Pardon?
I think that's when the CD came out. I think that's when the compilation CD came out.
Yes. It was basically it was, we got the call to do the reunion. Unfortunately, David Araka had died around like the middle of the 90s. I believe it was 94. And then, I didn't think Robert was going to do it because he's presently living in St. Louis. Mm-hmm. He's married. He has a daughter. But Sean Saley, in honor of David Araka, decided to do it. So getting back to the CD, that was kind of like the Cleveland Screaming concert was kind of like our CD release party, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So it was good because we played. I thought the show was great, and plus the fact you could buy the CD of all these unreleased recordings, because only people knew our name and the compilations we were on. That was it.
Right.
So,
well, why don't we play something off Scream Until We Die? I don't know. Fire in the Church always stands out to me.
It's a great song. A lot of people like that song. Or you could play Screeching Metal. Okay. Or you could put your hand through the play. Whatever you want to play.
Why don't we play two songs? Let's play Fire in the Church and Screeching Metal. Why not? We're tuned in to Pushermania Podcast, Real Talk with Matt Sonzala, and Tom Dark is on the line. We're getting closer and closer. And some of my folks in Erie might be listening. We're getting closer to them Knifedance days. We're going to get back and reminiscing some more after these two songs. Y'all keep it locked.
Time bring darkened days and blow away the dust of forgotten winds of time bring darkened days and blow away the dust of forgotten graves. This is an acid. This is an acid. It's red and white. Cathedral bleed, and I can still hear the cold crackling sound of a church and rounding flames. Echoes through my mind, the fiery voice still remains. Screeching metal. Screeching metal. 1, 2, 3, 4! Screeching metal that lost control. Screeching metal, it's driving me insane. Scream into the night to get no reply. Scream into the night to get no reply. No one is there to hear you cough. A voice kept in a jar, the glass must break. A voice kept in a jar, the glass must break. Bloody hands, a battered brain. Bloody hands, a battered brain. Increase the pain. You needle under concrete. You're gonna break down. The line to be so. You're gonna break down. The line to be. Screeching metal, a knife to kill. Screeching metal, a knife to kill. Die! 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 The glass must break. The glass must break. Screeching metal. The mirror must break. Ow! Ow! It's a stranger. It's about rape. Screeching metal! What the devil?
Man, seriously, it's great to talk to you, brother, for real. Because I don't know.
Oh, same here, man.
I'm sure you sort of know, but like, you know, meeting you when I was at the age I was and seeing Knifedance and following you guys around was a big inspiration for me. You know what I mean? Like seeing how you guys were doing it, how Cleveland did it.
Uh-huh.
You know, I lived in Erie. We had to go to, you know, out of town to see touring shows. And I was lucky enough to one day, My Three Scum from Erie, they put together an all-ages show at a place called the Continental Ballroom. Before that, I know Tex and the Horseheads played Erie. That was before my time. There wasn't a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But then the, you know, we'd see the local bands like Larry Weaver had a band called FOD. That was about the generation where I was able to start going to see shows. And but when I went to that show at the Continental Ballroom, a bunch of people showed up. It was My Three Scum, Lost, and a band called Backwash. And just three local bands. Before that, like, you'd go see heavy metal cover bands in a church basement or something. You know, like if you were a teenager going out to see some music, that was about the only option. And man, I asked the guy Paul Yocklin, who owned the Continental Ballroom, he passed in December. And
well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it sucks, man. I always wanted to see him again and thank him too, because I just walked up to him and thought to myself, man, I just said to him, if I could bring some touring shows here, would I be able to rent this place out? He's like, you think you can do that? I said, yeah, I think so. And it was right about the time I had already known you and seen you probably 5 or 6 times, just known you from, going to shows and buying T-shirts and records and things. But I had written a letter, and I had met John Brannon just buying a T-shirt from when they opened up for DeCroixton and Sonic Youth at Peabody's. And then I might have I've seen him a couple times after that. But I wrote him a letter, probably ordered a T-shirt or something from them. And me and my friend Mike and Rich, we were thinking about starting a fanzine. And I wrote him a letter saying, would you ever be interested in doing an interview? And he wrote back with, whatever I ordered from him. He wrote back and he said, yeah, just call me anytime. He put his phone number. And I was sitting there looking at Mike like, he's like, call him. I'm like, I can't call John Brannon. He's like, just call him. And I was like, hey, man, if we could do a show, if you guys are coming around Cleveland or Pittsburgh or Buffalo, we'd love to bring you to Erie. And it was like 6 months in advance. Like they were like, yeah, man, it's gonna be like April. It was April 9th, 1989. And then they said they would do it. I called you, and I had seen that band Lost with My Three Scum, and I liked them a lot. And that was the beginnings of my first show. But really, that all, watching you and watching how independent things were happening at the Sonic Temple in Pittsburgh, at the different bars in Cleveland, the places. I saw you in Buffalo before. You know what I mean? Like just random places. And you were like a big inspiration to me getting started and doing any of this.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I mean, I think everybody, when they do things, we're trying to give back as I would say to, to a community of people to come out. I'm just grateful that, for instance, that we play live and people come out to see us, or release something. And back then you got mail orders like Knifedance, for instance. We got mail orders from all over the world. In my mind, I'm like, who the heck would know about us? We're just some little band in Cleveland. We weren't like gigantic, like we weren't Minor Threat or, Negative Approach, like huge in my book, huge, or Bad Brains, for instance. And people bought our records and loved it, and we're happy to do that. And as we're like, say going to Erie, Pennsylvania and meeting you, I mean, we're friends to this day. And I just want to give a shout out to Erie, Pennsylvania. The people there are very close to my heart and are very supportive in anything and everything I've done. And I still go up to shows there. Like my last band before Black Static, I was Dead Federation. We played up there. That was more of like a horror punk thing I was doing. And people love that, and, like Morbid Rob and his wife and all these people showed up and everything. And it was just like, every time I go to Erie, I have a great time. I always have a phenomenal time up there. Same with Pittsburgh. So you do really have a friend in Pennsylvania, so to speak. You really do.
But seriously,
and I've known you for forever, man.
Probably
I remember. Oh my God! I remember spending time in Erie with you. I remember coming down to Houston. I remember like when we're like over at your father's place, we're having some mac and cheese, watching MTV's like what is it, Headbangers Ball, or Yo MTV Raps and stuff like that. I mean, the thing is it's just the fact that you get to experience things, and it's like moments like that will always stick in my mind. It's just like somebody they might have a negative kind of thing, be like, big deal, you win. I'm like, no, you don't understand, dude. It's the mere fact you get to do it. You get to do it, get up every day and do things. Or here I'm talking to you to this very day. I know we've lost some people along the way.
A lot.
But I was grateful to play with my brother, with David Araka, with Andrew Lessica, or see people, that had a major impact on my life,
Mm-hmm.
For instance, there's some people like, for instance, like Iggy Pop. He's still alive and still doing it.
I still listen to it. He's got a badass radio show on BBC Six Music. Sometimes he hasn't been on
I
the last
believe
few
it.
years, but it's a great show.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I believe it. I mean, I think it, you know, he's still carrying on. I didn't think David Bowie would pass before him. Not that I want Iggy Pop to pass away. It's just that, or for instance, I would, you know, like, we thought Lemmy from Motorhead was going to go on forever, you know, but, that guy is, you know, I think these people come and they influence our lives or give us some joy or something to be happy about. And for you to do the same thing by passing on the torch, there's a reason why everything is going on. You know, it's like, I know we're going through this coronavirus thing and some people diss it and think it's a hoax or have conspiracy theories, but we're going to get through this like anything else. You know, I mean, everything will pass. It's not a permanent thing, you know, and to me, this is a time for opportunity. You know, I'm not going to sit here and bum out. I'm still going to live my life, you know, and look at the, you know, I'm talking to you right now. You're still alive. I'm on your podcast. I'm married to a wonderful woman. I like my band. I like waking up, you know, it's just, you know, exercising, feeling good, reading books, you know, like, I got a text from John Brannon last week. You know, that means a lot to me. I talked to Jeff Clayton of Anti-Scene, you know, on the phone. He's doing great. One band that'll probably go on in history more than the Ramones. And those guys are unbelievable. I can't believe they're still playing. They're putting out product, everything. And plus the fact, unfortunately, Joe Young, the guitarist, passed away.
Yeah.
They have a new guitarist. If Jeff Clayton passes away, there's talk of them carrying on as Anti-Scene with the new singer, which I can't believe.
Wow.
I mean, these guys will probably go into outer space for all I know.
Yeah.
You know, that to me is amazing. But anyways, sorry if I'm getting off the subject. You know?
Well, no, it's great. I mean, talking about Erie, it's like I tell bands and rappers all the time, I'm like, you know, you need to look at these cities like Tyler, Texas, or whatever, Erie, Pennsylvania, and understand that there's a lot of kids and a lot of people in these places. Like, I went to any heavy metal show that played, and I liked a lot of metal, of course, too, but I went to every show because we had literally nothing else to do. There's still cities where the kids, man, they're so hungry for it, man. I mean, I talk about Houston rap all the time, and like Houston was a very supportive city of its own music, but if it didn't, if they weren't coming out to Waco and Killeen, which Killeen's one of the biggest military bases in the country, like people from all over the country were stationed there, going to these shows, seeing these groups that nobody else heard of, taking it back home, you know, DJ Screw and that sort of thing. It's the same thing with punk rock, man. Like when we used to tour, shit, I'm sure Knifedance is the same thing, man. Like we toured with Lost back in the day. I don't even remember some of the little cities in North Carolina and South Carolina and Florida. You know, we played Orlando and Tampa and New Orleans and stuff like that. But we also played Mobile, Alabama, and weird little spots in the Carolinas, and you know, just wherever we could get it in, wherever there was some kids that wanted to see a show, and that's where, I mean, to me, that's where it's at.
Yeah, we played some cities. Like, I mean, obviously we did the underground thing. We showed up. We did not know what we're getting involved with. We were playing with bands that are all, you know, new to us. I'm talking mainly the Knifedance tours. But there would be somebody in whatever town, in whatever state, that would promote this, whether it be in a club, a hall, whatever, somebody's backyard. I mean, you know, we would do it. The whole thing was with each state, if we could, we wanted to fill up that date. It didn't matter if the guy was like, okay, you got to show up this parking lot. We've got this thing, you know, like I had bands here, we do it. We're like, okay, that's cool, fine, whatever, we'll show up. And, you know, and it wasn't like, and we knew, I mean, some places were fucking gigantic crowd of people. Sometimes there weren't. There may be like 10 people there, if that, you know. Or sometimes we had a few shows where the promoter would like just leave. He's like, you know, and we're just like, we had this in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Like literally, we drove out and the promoter showed up in a tux, and he goes, "Hi, I'm the promoter. Sorry to do this to you, but I have to go to a wedding." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Well, who's in charge?" And it was like, and then the guy just left. And I think that day he put up literally a flyer on a brick wall in front of the movie theater, and then just left. And like some car, I was just like, okay, and I think we had another thing like that. And somewhere in New Jersey or maybe somewhere in Massachusetts, it probably was in New Jersey. We showed up, and it was in a club, a nice club, and I think the promoter just like friggin' just left or something in the middle of her set, like I guess whatever. And I mean, we still got paid, but it's just weird. Like, okay, where's the promoter? Oh, he just left. I'm like, okay, well, are we gonna get paid or something? Yeah, I guess. Here's $50, if that. So
Yeah.
It's always like one of those kind of deals.
No, it's crazy now. The way they tour now, though, they've got all these analytics and all these different things and ways they find to get the tickets to the people, and then you can monitor on social media and stuff whether or not this guy's promoting or not. Back then, you pull it in the city, you didn't know if this dude put up a flyer or what. You didn't know what was about.
I wanted to ask.
What's that?
I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
On like touring, and this and that, when you do you miss, I mean, the way things are now, like, let's be honest with each other. People who think punk rock, like when you had a band like, I hate to say, unfortunately, like Green Day, for instance, and it's like, okay, punk rock. It's just kind of like, okay, we're the band. It's safe to like dress up and you had your, I guess, hot topic punk, so to speak. Well, that to me is not punk. It's fashionable, but it's not. I guess there's no danger element to it, or there's no mystique element to it.
My daughter's about to turn 18 next month, but not to, just a quick aside. My daughter's about to turn 18 next month. One of my proudest moments in life. She was in like 6th grade, and she's like, "Daddy, all these kids at school think they're so punk. They are so not punk." Like all these like screaming sirens type bands and all this, and the Green Day. But that's the thing. This happened with hip hop as well. I mean, it's happened with all kinds of music. I mean, when Green Day blew up, that is a good example because first of all, I hated Green Day from day one. I never was really into that Bay Area stuff. There's a few bands, but there wasn't a lot that I really liked about like pop punk. There was a couple. I mean, I love the Descendants. Okay, fine. That's a whole nother level. But like, I thought Green Day and that shit was some garbage from day one. And I always say, like, if I really love your music, you probably have no chance of ever making it big. But if I hate you, you're probably going to be the next big thing. But I remember interviewing Mike Watt about and talking about MTV Punk, and when that shit started happening, and Blink 182 comes out, and these kids are being raised on like that level of music that they didn't get to see. What I mean, I will actually say Green Day started out. They were punks. They were living in the van. They were doing it. They for sure were doing it. Whether I like their music or not, I can't take anything away from them. But then what spawned after that was so gross. And then so much of this stuff that's happening in hip hop, it's the same thing. It's just so, they're looking at, it's not coming from just their soul, like any original form of music. You know what I mean? When people, when you guys were fucking 14 years old in the dark, you know what I mean? You weren't like, I mean, that was about as real as it gets, So yeah, but go ahead with the thing, because I just wanted to tell you that I was very proud of my daughter telling me that when she was like in 6th grade. I'm not dissing anybody. I mean, people have to live their lives, okay? But for me, if somebody younger than me comes up to me and goes, "I'm more punker than you," and it's like, really, and it's just like, I just think that there's more of a danger or a different kind of element to it, because not that I'm dissing technology, but when technology came in and the advancement of it, you can look up anything. I mean, I'm grateful that, for instance, like Knifedance footage or the stuff we have with my record label and my wife's Red Hour Records, we have a channel where you can get Knifedance videos or Dead Federation, things of that. But that stuff is like rare. Before it was like, I guess
everybody is just, how would I put it?
Well, we were trading tapes,
just,
VHS tapes in the mail of concerts, man.
Yeah,
sure.
I guess the mail.
You were hoarding
the
them.
order.
You weren't breaking us off. You kept your videotapes. I remember back then.
Correct. I still have them to this day.
But no, I used to trade with G.G. Allen's brother. I used to trade with Merle Allen. I used to trade with everybody.
Oh yeah. So did I with Merle. But the thing is, it's like, I mean, look at G.G. Allen, for instance. I mean, how punk can you get?
Yeah.
That might disgust some people, but he went out and did it. I'm thinking, this guy's going out there. He's doing his stick. He's like fucking, gross. He's like basically endangering his life doing this, and he did it. And some people might be like, that's disgusting, and but it's like, I'm like, well, obviously that's more punk than Green Day to me.
Right.
It's just it's like, oh, let's play it safe or this. I mean, there's so much different music is coming out. I even get into like oi music now, because there's some stuff that is like for real that speaking about the working class and this and that, where there might be somebody such as Green Day. I keep bringing up as an example, where it's like, it's a sellout kind of way, a safe way of saying, oh, the American Nightmare and this and that. It's just like, yeah, but you're doing it on a major label.
Exactly.
And
So that's the point here. The thing is, we can't really blame the bands and the musicians and the artists. It's the media and the people who took these bands and artists and turned them into something else, and turned them into this commodity that it wasn't when we were younger. It became different with rap music. Nowadays, all the new rappers, 90%, there's still some good rap. There's some people out there. But if you go to a show with these young dudes, it's like a thing to stage dive. Like, even in some of these shows, we were like, oh my God, when we were young, stage diving was just like, it was like total anarchy in the club. Like, the place was just exploding. People were jumping on top of each other like nuts. It wasn't, and there were certainly posers. And that's what I say to this day. People talk about like, you're old, you don't understand this new music. It's like, no, you know what? When I was a kid, I didn't like posers either. This is a lot of this music is some poser ass shit, because they learned about it from horrible entities like MTV and the bigger magazines and just this shitty media. Like,
out to you.
They learned it from people who should have had no part of this shit. But Green Day, they sold 10 million. I can't be mad at somebody selling 10 million records like that. That's the last people to really be mad at. But the people that took that sound and took that whole thing and ran with it and just ran it into the ground, man, that's what fucked up the game.
Which is another thing I can get into, like different things, such as Laughing Hyenas. When John had Negative Approach, he went from Negative Approach to Laughing Hyenas, and as he put it, he goes, we went to 500 people to 5 people, just because he's like, okay, this is what I want to do now. Well, that in a way is punk rock. You know what I'm saying? He's like doing something new. He doesn't want to keep doing the same thing. And I'll tell you a story, which is like really funny, because my wife can back this up. She and I went to GBH at the Garage Shop in Cleveland Heights. And a friend of ours, Joe Clampett, came to the show. We hadn't seen him in ages, and he played in Idiot Savants, and he played in Positive Violence, which is, by the way, on the New Hope compilation. So he's looking at all these kids, and he goes, oh, I'm going to go talk to these kids. And it was like really weird, because he hadn't been out in like ages, and I was just like, GBH has something about, they always draw, but they always seem to bring out people that haven't been to a show in a while. It's like, oh, GBH is coming to town, I'm going to go check them out. It kind of keeps their punk thing going, because they're a very good band. But anyways, he walked up to a couple people and asked them, hey, name me some GBH songs or Discharge songs or Exploited songs. And it was like, I don't know. It's just, they're like, what do you mean you can't name any of these songs? And it's just like, well, it's a cool t-shirt. It's fashionable, so I just wear it. And he's just like, he would just call these people out. And he's like, well, you're a friggin' poser. What the fuck are you doing at this show with the t-shirt on? You can't even name any of the songs for the band or what the band's about, And he just called all these people out in the room. He came back to us and reported this, and I was like, whoa. It was just weird hearing him say that to us as we're standing there at the show. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
Hello?
yeah, I hear you. I know what you're saying. I mean, but I'm just happy if they can fill a damn room and still be eating.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If it,
Yeah.
if the posers want to pay to get in, that's fine, I suppose. But it's just a whole culture, and that's what we have to find the new sounds. I mean, to be honest with you, when I was a kid, I was never into like techno music and stuff like that. But now
No,
I'm
neither
digging,
was I.
but I'm digging more into like weird electronic producers and weird shit out there because it's trying to find something new. What is new? What is going on right now? And that's what punk is to me, like doing whatever you want, doing what's going, making something for this moment, not making it for, making it for yourself, just doing it. Just getting
I
out
just
and doing it.
like. Well, the thing about it is, like for instance, electronic music. Barry Hensler from the Necros and Big Chief.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was a long time ago, but he got into. You might know about this. What is it? Jungle music or something, some form of techno.
Oh yeah, like jungle. Yeah, I mean, jungle, drum and bass, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what he got into, and he kind of disses on the punk thing. He's like, I avoid punkers like the plague. But that's his thing. You can call him out and just be like, oh, but I'm like, you got to respect him. I mean, he put, the Necros were the first wave of hardcore bands. Matter of fact, if it wasn't from the Necros, Negative Approach wouldn't be around. Okay. Right. By the way, I did not get to see him, but this is very strange. The radio station my wife works for, WCSP in Cleveland State, this guy put out this album and reunited these bands, but somehow he got the Pagans, being the Reformed Pagans, Mike Hudson, formed out in Los Angeles when he moved out there, came to play the show. It was great. Anyways, Barry Hensler showed up, and he was in the crowd, and I'm thinking, and I heard all about it. It was like really weird. 3 people from Pittsburgh were there, and they told me he was there, and I never saw him. I'm like, well, then introduce me. I'm like, I haven't seen him in 30 years or something. I mean, I've known Barry since the beginning of the Necros, but I guess he watched half of the show and he left. But man, for a guy in disguise or whatever it was, or blended in, I thought I would see him. I did not see him at all. I don't understand why he was even in Cleveland, Ohio, because he lives in Chicago. So it was very strange. But the Pagans were a huge influence on him, as me. That was like one of the main bands when I got into the punk scene. The Pagans were like, I actually had their singles and pictures up on my wall, along with the Stooges and that whole kind of thing. So, but anyways, it's the same way Barry got into techno, John got into Laughing Hyenas, where, he got into more blues birthday party kind of rock. Who else?
I need to interview John and talk to him, because he's always told me, says, I always liked hip hop, so people would always talk to me about that as well. And he's like, man, I saw NWA. he told me about going to see NWA.
I can tell you, like right now, the story. I was on tour with the Hyenas. We went to Chicago, and I'm trying to think some other place. Anyways, they were way into NWA. And when we were in Chicago, we took a picture with their autographs, Eazy-E and Dr. Dre and all that stuff. But anyways, he did go to the one NWA show in Detroit, and then he went go back to meet him, which was at a hotel, and he told me all these gangs were here. And one of the guys from a gang said, you stepped on my foot, punched him or something. So I guess he got beat up after the show or something. But it's just like the thing that kills me is, he just talks about it like matter of fact, like, yeah, I went to an NWA show. It was great, changed my life, and I got my ass kicked after that.
In Detroit.
So it was just like, yeah, in Detroit. Man. Detroit's a rough town. But I like going up there now. It's not really that far a drive. It's about 2 hours from Cleveland.
Yeah, it's a dynamic city, man. I mean, shit.
Mm-hmm.
With a big resurgence.
Oh yeah. It's just, And, you know, it's had great bands come out of there, along with John's other band, Easy Action.
Of course.
Although, basically, Easy Action is Negative Approach, same members.
Right.
You know? So, I don't know what's going on with Easy Action. It's kind of weird because I thought they were supposed to put out a new album about 2 years ago.
Well, that same festival where they had the Negative Approach and Jay Mascis came out, the Easy Action played that festival as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. He went out, you know, he John had no reservations about it. He goes, "Oh yeah, I'm doing both bands." And I was like, "Whoa," you know, and that's cool. And I know with the Jay Mascis thing, they came when they got out to California. They came out and did, I believe, a couple Laughing Hyenas tunes because Todd Swallow was there, and of course Ron being in the new Negative Approach. You know, he was in Laughing Hyenas along with the Necros. It's on YouTube, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I think they do Everything You Want, Everything You Want, and maybe Here We Go Again. Maybe they did those two tunes.
Damn.
So, yeah, but that was great, you know, and God bless Larissa, who I saw before she passed, unfortunately, you know.
Yeah.
So, yep. Yeah, a lot of people coming and going, you know, but that's just life in general. Like I said, there's a reason for everything going on, you know, but like I said, we'll get through this and everything. But yeah, people move on to other things such as yourself, you know, you're talking about, you know, more electronic music and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. You know, and the thing is people don't like, if they know certain things, like they're used to you through your habits and what you like. Some people like to just want you to stay that way forever, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, I remember, if you want to hear a funny story, this is a long time ago in hardcore, there was this guy, his name's Alex, he had a mohawk and everything. And he was totally into punk rock, like totally into hardcore, you know? And, you know, he's like, and I said, "Oh, I don't really listen to that after, like, what are you listening to?" And I was telling him like some blue, like Gun Club and Billie Holiday. And he got all mad at me when I said that. He goes, "Man, I knew you were going to say something like that." I think I mentioned the Cramps too. And he's like, "Man," he goes, "don't you listen to DRI and da-da-da?" He just thought that's all I listened to all day. I'm like, "No, I listen to different things, you know." And he was just like, "You're not punk. You're just a fucking fake, you know, sellout or whatever." And I was like, "Well, whatever, you know." I didn't care. I just thought it was like funny. He's just standing there with this mohawk and leather jacket on. He's like screaming at me. Like, I thought it was like no rules, dude. You just do whatever you want, but you're placing rules on me. So years later, all of a sudden, when Metallica came out, he gets into metal. Total thrash metal. And he's the expert on heavy metal, okay? He had, remember Metallica's Ride the Lightning? He had the Metallica tattoo on his arm, okay? And I'm thinking, one thing I wouldn't do is, I'm sorry for me, I'd never put a band name on my arm. I don't care. I'm not going to put the Laughing Hyenas or anything on my arm, the Stooges, whatever. Mm-mm. I don't have tattoos. I want tattoos because everybody's got a tattoo.
Yeah, so, we're the exceptions now.
No, I don't want to tattoo my body up. I like tattoos, but now I'm like, God, everybody has them. I'm like piercing, like whatever.
Everybody.
So, yeah, I know everybody, including your grandmother, your mother, your father, stuff. You know, everybody.
My dad, yeah.
I'm just kidding. No. But anyways, so I was, you know, he just like, you know, I was like, I like metal, the thrash metal that is, you know, I like Slayer, and, you know, like when Metallica came out, and my brother was like, you know, Exodus and all that stuff. But I was all those guys were like Slayer because they just kept to their thing. You know, they didn't branch out. Like Metallica, in my opinion, should just break off. They shouldn't even be a band anymore. I don't know what happened to them. After Cliff died, to me, they're not even a band. But I'm not a hugest fan of them. But anyways, getting back, no, I'm not. But the thing is, this guy is like, oh, he's the expert. You know, he started chewing us out because we're talking about hardcore one time at a party. And he comes out and he's like, he's just yelling. There he goes again with his yelling and screaming at us, you know. And he's trying to grow his hair out, but it kind of looks like a perm, which I'm just fucking laughing about. And we're just like, we're not saying we hate metal. He's just like, well, don't diss Metallica, blah, 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 and all this kind of shit. I would like to know where he is now. And I go, sure you like Metallica anymore? You know, because you know they suck, dude. And I'm sure you still got that tattoo on your arm, you know. What I'm trying to say is don't permanently be like that because you'll just stale and just, I don't know, you poof away, you know, or something like that. You know, I'm sure that guy's into other things. So I know he might be a big fan of reggae or something now or classical music. You know what I'm saying? It's just like I would never... You know, I'm sure he would be like, oh, that's what I was into at the time. I go, well, you sure made a big deal out of it, like you were the expert on everything, you know.
Man, well, I love it when I like people, I mean, not this guy necessarily, but like, for instance, reggae. There's lots of great reggae mixes out there, lots of great reggae DJs, but so many DJs are going to go for the hits or go for the classics. And I listened to a show on Sundays, the guy named David Rodigan, he's like 70 years old on the BBC. And he still to this day makes a point. He'll play one or two like classics on the show, but he makes a point to dig around and find new reggae. He played some Swedish lady yesterday who was dope. You know, like he plays, like, and he still goes around and finds like what's new and what's happening. And regardless of the type of music it is, like hip hop is really bad with that. There's so many DJs who won't take a chance or whatever. But when you find that one that does, that can really turn you on to some new music, that's what's important to me. Like, cause I listen to this Knifedance CD sometimes. I listen to some old jazz. I just did a whole vinyl mix on my SoundCloud of all like old jazz, but I also have like the brand new Ethnic Heritage Ensemble on there. I have Shit and Shine on there. Like I'm always looking for something new and want somebody to tell me what's going on, what is happening in Cleveland right now, what's happening anywhere. You know, that's what's always been most important to me. And the people like that who get so stuck in like in the past, like I personally, of course, I will say I prefer hip hop from the 90s to hip hop from the 2000s. That's just how it is, how I feel. But there's still good music now. There's still good stuff happening now. There's punk bands. I went and saw a band called Hiss recently. I can't remember another band that opened up that were just their first show in my brain. I can't remember exactly what their name was. But like, there's still music happening on all levels. It's just like, it's still the same. There's the posers. There's the real. You got to find the real in everything. Why don't we take a quick? I want to talk about Knifedance. I know people want to hear more about Knifedance. I'm going to play. You know what I always liked? I always liked that song "Driven."
Oh yeah. That's the Andrew Lexicock came in and he wrote the riff to that. That's a very good song. That's like that's a favorite with people. Catwalk, God's Eye, Angel Mercy. Well, I mean, there's like a lot of songs to choose from. I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but I'm just, you know, Atomic Apostles. Yeah.
That's my shit.
The last version of Knifedance, people like that Loaded Heart, which my brother and I wrote. Scott did the riff.
Stocking Ground is the hardest.
Did the lyric.
I played Stocking Ground on a metal mix I did recently. I sent you a link. I love that. Stocking Ground is so hard.
That's actually, even though the last version of Knifedance did that, that was originally when Andrew Lesko was in the band, and I think Charlie came up with that because it starts off with the do 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 do, and that, you know, I don't, for some odd reason, I'd have to go through my tapes. I don't think we recorded that in the early version. I could be wrong, but I had that and Move On. Move On was the first song Knifedance ever wrote, along with Desert Hopes, Desert Dreams. But that was about it. I don't think we recorded Stalking Ground, early version that is, and Move On. I don't know why. You know, it's like, okay, we've got a song, let's record it. And I'd be like, nah, I don't want to do that or something like that. It was just kind of weird, you know, how things unleash. But anyways, let me know what you want to talk about?
Well, I don't even have to introduce this next song because it comes complete with its own introduction. You're tuned in to Pushermania's podcast. We're talking to Tom Dark, and we'll be right back.
But you got to introduce this next song. Wait, what's the next song called?
The Real Bahamas.
Okay, you have to say, and now this is Knifedance, and the name of the song is Driven.
What's that?
You have to say, well, the name of the band I'm playing is Knifedance, right? Okay, and the name of the song
Yes.
is Driven, so you have to announce it.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
This is Knifedance.
What's the name of the song?
The name of the song. You didn't tell me.
Okay, the name of the song
You're
is Driven.
failing, buddy. You're
right,
failing.
Driven.
I'm
and
failing.
And the name of the group is Knifedance.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Rivet by Knifedance.
No, Driven.
Driven.
Driven. No, Driven.
Driven.
Okay, say,
You guys are making it too difficult for
say, and now here's Knifedance
Who's
with
feeding
Driven. Okay? Go ahead.
Driven by
I knew you could.
Knifedance.
Thank you.
Wake up, girl!
right, so we just played Driven. That was off the second album, and then Stalking Ground from the 7-inch that you said blew my mind just a minute ago, telling me that's an earlier Knifedance song. I had no idea. I thought that was definitely a product of the last lineup because it was way that shit was heavy.
You know what? I take that back. Remember when I just told you we did not record Move On? Well, the early version and Stalking Ground, but we did do Stalking Ground, which you hear on the 7-inch, and we did record Move On. Mm-hmm. And that was the last version of the band with, my brother and I, Sean Watkins, Chris, and Sam. Mm-hmm. We did do a whole album that with some new songs too. But that never got released. That was like around, I remember this. It was 1990 that got released November 1st. I believe we broke up because those guys didn't want to do a tour. We had it all set up, and guess what? Your friend, the singer from Lost, Brian,
yeah.
He was supposed to take us out on tour. And because my van at the time, I didn't think was stable enough or equipped enough to take us out, because we're going all over, like everywhere, Texas, Minneapolis, Minnesota, I think. Mm-hmm. And we had some good shows with Anti-Scene, The Cows, and I believe Naked Ray Gun. We had some dates there. For some odd reason, at the last minute, it's like we're like almost supposed to go on tour in 2 to 3 weeks. Those guys were like, "Nah, we don't do it."
Man,
I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to do it? Well, no, we just don't. We don't want to do that, anymore. And my brother and I my brother was just crushed, and I was just like, because I put so much work into it. My day was just waking up. This was before cell phones. I had to call these guys, go to work, same place I'm still working at, then get home, do mail orders for my then record label, Hit and Run Records, and then call these club owners. And it was just nothing but calls, because you're going to get an answering machine, or you're going to get somebody, if that's going to pick up the phone, like, well, so-and-so is going to be here between these hours. We've got to catch them tomorrow at this hour. And so at the same time, okay, I'm paying this guy to drive us around in the van. We'll pay for the gas, pays for his food. I think I gave him an advance or something. Mm-hmm. Whatever. I had all my bases covered. And then it was like, boom, I don't want to do this anymore.
People have no idea what it takes. People have no idea what it takes to have a band or a musical career in that way, to keep people together. How many times? I mean, I have 500 stories of that. Like, okay, we're going to do this. No.
It's
like
it's very hard
for it. You got to be built for it.
Oh yeah. It's like, I tell you, the road that's a big kind of thing to take on. And you got to have people, depending on how many people are in your band, on the same level. The one thing I admire about Black Flag is they were the band that Greg Ginn, to me, was like, okay, you're going to be in my band. You're going to do a boot camp, because I remember reading the Black Flag story, the book about them. Chuck Dukowski was like, we're going to practice, but we're going to practice a lot. Like all the time, kind of thing. Those guys would practice like 6 days a week, 8 to 10 hours a day, and just keep going through the same songs, whatever it was. So you're just programmed. Your brain is into like, you did that, you practice all day, you wrote some lyrics, you listened to what Greg said, you fucking, did things at his label SST Records, you did mail outs, the whole thing. I mean, those guys were living like dogs, man, and eating barely any food, and, but when people give to somebody like Henry Rollins crap, for him to go through that, I go, you can sit there and point your finger at him all you want to, or any other person in Black Flag. You could never survive that. There's no way. It's like being a Navy SEAL in a band, for God's sake, And it's like, from what you're saying, there's some people that just come back from the tour and you just don't want to tour anymore, or, whatever. I mean, I'll be honest with you, with my band Black Static Guy, we had a whole bunch of dates set up. We were supposed to do last Friday we're supposed to play in Buffalo, New York, and then next day we're supposed to play Cleveland. Well, all our dates, those got canceled, but all our dates up until July are on hold. We don't know how long this Corona thing is going to go on.
Right.
There might be some things that will open little bits, but that doesn't mean it's going to die down or we're going to be out of the woods,
Right.
because they got to find a serum or something to cure this or keep this down. And but getting back to what I was saying, I personally think, from my perspective, it's a young man's game. I'm 55, unless Black Static Guy, like let's say I was doing tours and I was like, say, Stiff Little Fingers or The Exploited or, Flag or something. Well, you're going to draw crowds. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Black Static Guy doesn't draw crowds like that, And, we have a CD out. We have a CD on the way. We have downloads. But in my opinion, the market is just so overloaded with bands and music everywhere, everywhere you go. It's just, there's just so much. And with technology, the live thing, if you can exist on that, which you can make your money. Now, if you slowly rely on your just musical thing and that's it, God bless you if you can do it, but I still have a job, and I'm going to see that job till the very end. The company I work for has been very good to me, but I don't know how the future is going to be, and it's just like, I like playing music. I like making music. I don't know if I could do a tour for like a month.
Yeah, well,
every day.
Yeah, but that's the thing. 55 at 18, 19, 20, you can do whatever, be in the van or whatever. But 55, you got to have your own hotel room. You and Scary Eller are gonna have to have your own room. There ain't gonna be no van sleeping. You know what I mean? Like that's I don't think I could. I actually prefer living in the van. Being on the road like that. I love doing that, but at this point, when I go on tour with Devin, we mostly fly. We might take trains. In fact, to be honest, I don't even really want to tour the States that much. It's such a luxury in Europe. They take care of you so well over there, and it's, they feed you well. It's all pretty much runs really more efficiently. But yeah, but the point I think we were both trying to make is like this is a lot of work, man. Either if you're independent, you're young, you're old, you're big, you're small. Just getting four people together on one page to do anything is a lot. You know what I mean? Like 4 or 5 people just to make it happen. And you have been. I love that you still have Black Static Eye, and I love Dead Federation. I love Stepsister. You know what I mean? You've continued on and stayed. Like you told me, you stayed with your same job for so long, but throughout that whole time, you've still been making music and putting it out there and playing shows, and I admire that a lot. I think that's like, none of that ever dies if it's for real within you.
Oh yeah. Getting back touring, my 3 other members, and we play together. We try to do the best we can, but they don't have as much vacation time as me.
Right.
Say, okay, we're going to book shows for a week. We're going to do all 6 days and then come back. Mm-hmm. Well, those guys can't do that, Right. So that's easy for me to say, and, it's like, I wouldn't want anybody to quit their jobs for, income. We barely make any money. We just do it because we like playing and we're happy if people like it and buy a few whatever CDs from us or want to download something or they enjoyed it. Just the fact that people would even show up and see us. But it's very hard. It's like, say I want to say, well, let's go out for a week. It's like, well, yeah, we can't do that, man. If I go out for a week, I don't have vacation time like that, and plus I'll lose my job. I don't want anybody to lose their job.
No.
So, matter of fact, our original bass player, Black Static Guy, he just moved to Hawaii last year to up his job. So he's happy doing that. He's over there with his girlfriend / fiance. He's happy over there. So we got a new bass player, Michael, who's a great guy. But ever since we've done this Corona thing, we haven't practiced. The last time it was like last month, March, the middle of March, and all our gigs have been canceled so far or put on hold. I don't know. One thing I'm working on at the current moment is the new Black Static Eye release, The Fortune Teller, will be on download through Smogville Records and compact disc, meaning CD, on Red Hour Records, which is just a mail order thing. We still get orders. Our biggest seller is the Cleveland Screaming documentary movie on DVD. It's a double disc if anybody's interested. But anyways, go on.
That was great.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. There's also a Buffalo Punk documentary out there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Might be on YouTube. But
okay.
Not. But honestly, when you come to punk rock and stuff, there's not many cities as deep as Cleveland. Just rock and roll in general, but like real raw rock. Cleveland, that history.
I think Cleveland's been a very underrated city. We've been ragged on. There's been, already history's proved itself. There's been so many bands that were ahead of its time, being the Dead Boys, the Pagans,
Perubu.
God, there's so many bands I could name. Even in Northeast Ohio, like when we released Cleveland Screaming documentary, that's what it's about. It says Cleveland Screaming. That's because it was taken because of the reunion concerts, So Brad Warner, who played bass in Zero Defects, who got it together, and then we finally released it through Red Hour because there was a couple people were going to release it, but they never pulled through on the project, but we did. Zero Defects, Agitated, Offbeats. There's a lot of great bands.
Did you ever?
And then you had
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, did you ever get to see Devo early on?
No, I never got to see Devo early on. I got the singles. I got all the early singles when they came out, but I never did go get to see Devo.
They're from Akron, right? Akron's not that far from Cleveland.
Correct.
That's just south of Cleveland a bit, right?
No, it's like 30 minutes to an hour away at the most.
Yeah.
It's like, you could drive down. I could drive down there like right now. That's a great town. It had great bands besides Devo, Rubber City Rebels, Hammer Damage, another band that had major label interest, and then it just didn't. I don't know. The public couldn't, push them over the edge. It was should I say the Rubber City Rebels? That's what I'm talking about. But when they came back, those guys from Rubber City Rebels, 2 of them became Hammer Damage, which was a great freaking band, and another underrated band. There's so many bands to name, it's just like, and then, of course, in Ohio, the state of Ohio, you had Toxic Reasons from Dayton, and you had the Necros from Maumee, Ohio, and everything. So, and then, like we mentioned earlier, like Dead Boys, Pagans, Decappers, Lepers, God, AK-47s, like all kinds of stuff. And of course, my whole time, think about it, the Electric Eels, that was like between 1970 and 74, Agitated. Come on. Dave E. had a leather jacket with safety pins and rat traps. And think about that. It's just like, that's way before Johnny Rotten and the Sex Pistols start doing any of that kind of stuff, in 75, 76.
No, way before.
So I think Cleveland was a little bit ahead of its time, with things.
Cleveland was very ahead of its time and does not get the credit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. People kind of rag, Cleveland, Ohio. I remember reading some review in Your Flesh magazine that says, I think it was a Starvation Army review, and they said, that's a city like an armpit waiting to die or something. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. You know, it's just. I think when people have the money and the backing and they can put out product, like for instance, like nobody in a way really cared about Seattle until Sub Pop came along. Then it was like they started doing all these bands, and then it was like, oh, I like Seattle. Seattle's great now, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say, like, say we had a Sub Pop in Cleveland, and all these bands start coming out. Cleveland would be the place.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like when Devo said Akron was the Liverpool of America. Well, that's what started that whole thing with when major labels started getting interested in Devo, Rubber City Rebels, Tin Huey, the Bizarros, Chai Pig, when there really was no kind of like Liverpool down there. Right. But just because he said that in the press, people were like, oh my God, you know? So, you know, things like that, you know, take off. If you have the money in the back and, you know, people take an interest, if you can move bands and their music out there like that, you know, even though it might end up in the cutout bin, but you take a chance and all that stuff. Same with the Stooges and MC5 and all those bands. Those bands weren't selling zillions of records. They're pretty much cutout bin stuff, but labels took a chance until after 75, radio got formulated. Like, this is what you're going to play. It's going to be Bruce Springsteen, things like that. You know, none of this punk stuff or whatever, you know? Mm-hmm. So thank God there's podcasts and free radio where people can, like, just talk freely and play anything they want. You know?
Just keep it real, man, for real. And that's what Cleveland always did. Cleveland is one of the realest cities, hands down, for the music, you know. And on a side, before we end up here, to be honest, I only have so much time on this card that I record on this little Roadcaster podcast.
I understand.
But I wanted to ask you just a total aside. Did you ever know Harvey Picar?
No, I know who he is.
Yeah.
His
documentation of Cleveland, I mean, his documentation of Cleveland in comic book form was just incredible.
Yeah. I think I've seen him a few times walking down the street on Coventry or around Cleveland Heights. That's primarily where he's from or was from. But I never met him in person or anything like that. I've never met Crumb, who did the illustrations, Robert Crumb.
Right.
No, but yeah, I know who he is, you know, and I've, seen his stuff, but I never met him officially.
Yeah, I just looked over and saw I have a stack of American Splendors, and I was like, I need to ask Tom if he knew Harvey.
It's a good movie. It's a good portrayal of him. I thought it was very good.
Yeah.
Plus, I think there was a scene he was in a basketball park basketball. Yes, and he was eating Papa Nick's pizza. That's like right around the corner from my house in Lakewood.
Funny. That's funny.
Which is like funny.
Yeah, I have all the books.
Which is kind of weird because I was like, oh, that's a West Side pizzeria. I'm like, I wonder why he's eating West Side when he's an East Sider. But that's just me, you know.
You noticed.
It's just, it's like if you saw somebody, you're in Austin, it's like, man,
there's always
why's that guy eating that in Dallas, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I'm sorry I missed you. Remember last we talked, me and Scary and I came into town to see the Scientists.
Right.
At Beerland.
Yep.
And I remember, of course, I talked to Tim Kerr, the fantastic Tim Kerr there. And I saw James Arthur from Fireworks, Necessary Evils, things of that nature. But we flew back the next day, and then Scientists came to Cleveland, and man, I'll tell you, that show we saw was better than the Austin show. No diss on Austin, but man, they blew the roof off the house. They were so good. I talked to Kim Salmon and the whole band, very nice people. But I had a birthday party shirt on, and they're all interested. They're more interested in the birthday party T-shirt. So, is that the original? Where'd you get that? I told them I got it from a mail order on eBay or something.
Man,
like, they're telling me, just one shop.
Yeah, I'm sad I missed
this one
you guys.
Shop in Australia.
I'm sad I missed you guys on that, but I also just I did have a period, like I said, I'd been self-isolating this last year or so, or a little more. Just kind of like you know, what you just said, dude, I'm sorry, but notice I love Austin for a lot of reasons, but dude, this place used to be so fun to go to. I'm old too, so I don't give a shit, but I still will go to shows sometimes, but now I go to shows and I listen to the way people talk and the way I just get too annoyed, man. Like I can't even hang out like that anymore. And like, and Beerland pissed me off too, because motherfuckers brought Pere Ubu, and this rich dude was doing all these fucking shows, doing all these little like exclusive parties, and you couldn't buy an advance ticket, and they had Pere Ubu with like 6 or 7 bands or some shit opening up, like, which would be hell to me at this point. And it
is hell.
It is hell. But listen, man,
this dude,
no, he made it it was a $5 show. He's just a rich dude trying to do cool things. He brought Pere Ubu to Beerland, a band I wanted to see so bad. I have kids. I had to deal with some shit. I got there at like 10 minutes after 8, and they were like, "Oh, it's one in, one out. No, it's packed. Sorry." It was like, with who? A bunch of your stupid friends, man. You know what I mean? So, and I was like, I waited in line for like 20 minutes. I was like, this is the beginning of the show. Ain't nobody leaving. And so I didn't get to see Pere Ubu, and I was pissed off at Beerland, to be honest. And that whole situation was just some bullshit. That's probably one of the many reasons I did not go out to that. But that Pere Ubu shit, that pissed me off so much. I wanted to see them so bad. I always wished that like Fun Fest or somebody would have brought them. And then they're all of a sudden, and Rocket from the Tombs played too. But all of a sudden they're playing Beerland, and I'm like, I was so mad. So mad. It was just like a party for them. It was like so they could have a cool party.
Well, here's the thing. As I get older, I'll just give you a short story on that. We came into Austin. We got a car. We were staying with our friend, Lynn Tozier, but she's out in, way out. She's out in the country. She's not, she's like about, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes from downtown Austin. So we decided to just stay in town. But we didn't have it planned out exactly. We parked the car, walked around, went into some fancy, smanchy restaurant, got some food, got some beers, walked over to Beerland. One thing, we got there early, and I was like, man, all they had was like 3 chairs by the bar. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't want to stand through all this stuff, So, and I had to drive, so I can't, drink and drive, so I shared a beer with my wife. So, we're sitting through, I don't know what it was, like 2 bands, three bands or something. And, one of the bands that opened up was like really good. I got their album. I forget their name. They were really good. The Scientists came on, and they were good. But like I said, the Cleveland show was way, way better. But anyways, James Arthur, wanted us to come and party. And I wasn't like really in the mood to party because we like drove out to Lynn Tozier's. And it's like way out in the country. There was like no such thing as like street lights or anything. We had a flashlight and our phones trying to find the address, even though we'd been there before.
Wow.
But the last time we came to Austin, when we saw you, it was happening, And I'm not dissing Austin.
We got to see Off and Cerebral Ballsy when you came that time. That was a fun show.
Oh yeah. No, it was great. But when my wife and I were walking back, all these people on these scooters, and I was just like, it was driving me up the friggin' wall. I'm like, what is up with all these scooters, like everywhere? I'm like, what are you guys like? It was like driving me up the friggin' wall. I'm like, oh my God. And we're just like basically like this. Let's get out of here. Let's get out of the city and get out of here like right now. And people are like, let's party. I'm like, dude, I can't party because these people just want to do beer and shots and go nuts eating Mexican food or something. I'm like, I can't do that,
Yeah, well, the street that Beerland's on, that area, Red River, there's still some culture, there's still some music, but 6th Street is a pit. 6th Street is like Coyote Ugly. Literally, they have Coyote Ugly there, but Flamingo Cantina is still standing, which is a classic club. It's right at 6th and Red River. There's still the Paris. There's still a few places that, there's good live music venues, Empire, Mohawk. I guess Beerland was bought out by a corporate entity, from what I understand. There's Barracuda. There's some venues, but it's just like going downtown, like downtown Austin, man. I live up not too far north, but I'm kind of north, man. I want to open up my own venue on the north side and never go downtown again if I can help it. Those scooters, those condos, all that shit.
What happened with Mike's club he was booking at?
Man, Mike Flannery is still booking Kick Butt Coffee, but he's on hold like anybody right now. You know, like they're serving coffee out the door, but they're not having shows. Nobody's having shows, but he's still. I just saw Mike the other day, man. We were talking about you, man. Like I told him, I was like, I'm gonna hit up Tom about doing a podcast, man. I got this mixer now, and I'm like, I can do good phone calls, and so I was like, I saw him just the other day.
Well, tell him I said hi. I did
sure.
like write him on Facebook, but I never heard back from him. But I think he was like overwhelmed with booking. This was like last year or something. We're like, we want to do something weird, like go down there and play, because I think I was like looking through old, you know, things he wrote me, like, watch, come down here and play. And I'm just like, well, maybe you could fly down there if you could provide us with some equipment, you know, But I never heard back from him. But I'm sure he was going through some stuff, or he was like overbooked, or he's got enough people to deal with, especially if you're running a club, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy. But tell him I said hi.
I'll tell him for sure, man. And there's still people keeping it real down here in Austin. It's still a cool city, but yeah, the downtown has changed so much. It's hard for me to even give a shit, to be honest, about a lot of these things. But I'm glad you're still doing it, man. And before we get out of here, I think we should play something from Black Static Eye. What would you suggest? So the first record came out like last year. I got that online, right? Was it last year?
Okay.
That's all I have. That's all I have from Black Static Eye.
For you can play two cuts, and that would be the first one, My Happy Hour, or the kind of birthday party-ish one called The Black Forest Found Her. I don't know what it is, but when we start playing that song, all these people would request that.
Okay.
And I mean, I like it, but I didn't think, My Happy Hour and The Black Forest Found Her, I would play those two songs. Nice. And then, like I said, we got some new one coming out called The Fortune Teller, download in Smogville, and on CD through a mail order, Red Owl Records, www.redowlrecords.com. You want to order it. Should be like an easy $5 for it. So, you know, and we do have T-shirts, buttons, stickers, and koozies, whatever you want to call them, to hold your beer, drink.
You've always been good with the merch, for real. You've always been good with the merch. Always, all your bands.
Well, guess what? Remember, Stepsister, we had the ashtrays and coffee cups at the time. Was like, who would buy those?
Everybody.
So with Anti-Scene told me they came out with coffee cups, and they're like, the reason why we did this is because of you.
Wow.
I said, well, I have my Anti-Scene coffee cup. I do have a Stepsister coffee cup and ashtray, but
I know I have it somewhere.
That's it.
I definitely have that somewhere. I have all that. That's crazy.
I think it's funny because people that still smoke, they go, hey, I flicked my ashes in your ashtray, or I drank some coffee this morning out of your coffee cup. I'm like, that's cool. But at the time, all people had was stickers, T-shirts, maybe some buttons, and that was it. That's all I saw. I said, do something a little bit different, you know. So who knows?
Yeah, but now there's companies online. You can just upload your logo, and you can order a baby T-shirt or a coffee mug or one of those Yeti coolers with the logo on it and shit. Like you can get like anything made these days online. Oh, yeah. It's crazy. It's so much different.
Maybe we might have some Corona masks. Stay calm and listen to Black Static Eye.
Oh.
What can I say?
There you go. Let's do it. Let's think about it.
It's just, you know, like anything. I wish we could put the new release out on vinyl. I just don't have the money. You know, it's just like, honestly, I wish I could.
Well, I have this policy of buying my friends' music. Like, I don't need any more records. Like, I love records, but I really don't need any more records. But then if a friend would put out a record, I'm like, all right, I'm going to buy it. But now all my friends are putting out records. I'm going to go broke. These $30 records. Well, when they're 20, I'm cool with it. When they're 30, 35, I have issues.
Mr. Chris Yarmock, he did the cover again for our new release. And it's like funny, when I go over to his house, that's all he listens to or buys is CDs. That's it. I said, he even told me, he goes, don't put your new release out on vinyl. I don't want it. I have so much vinyl. I can't deal with vinyl anymore. I said, okay, that's cool, dude. He goes, just make it CD.
That's funny.
He doesn't want any more vinyl. He said he's like tired of buying the vinyl. And he just wants CDs. I'm like, okay.
That's funny,
fine.
man. Tell him I said what's up. I interviewed him back in the day too, back when I was like 17, 18 years old, and you put his book out.
Mm-hmm.
That was crazy.
He's still painting. He's doing kind of well on his paintings, man. He just sold a bunch like last week.
Oh.
I love his paintings. It kind of, not exactly, but it reminds me a little bit of Randy Biscuits Turner from the Big Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of reminds me of that a little bit. You know, he's got some horror stuff or Halloween stuff in there. But his stuff is really good. I really like, you know, Lynn Tozer down in Austin says, man, he could make a killing down here if he sold that stuff. But, you know, Chris is Chris. He'll be in Cleveland forever. So, you know, but I'm glad his artwork is taken off. I just wish he'd get a website or something. But, like, he likes to stay under the radar. He doesn't like all that publicity and stuff like
He's
that.
analog.
So at least
He's keeping it analog.
Yeah. He's like old school, which is cool. I'm old school, too.
Yeah,
you know,
no doubt.
I mean, I have a computer and everything, but I'm not a tech wizard. I don't spend all day on my computer. I got other stuff to do.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Live
you
it.
know.
Well, I appreciate the time, man, and having this conversation, man. For real, it's a long overdue.
Oh yeah, man. You know it, man. I'm here
still
for
a
you
fan.
anytime. You know I love you. You're the man, and appreciate everything you've done for me, and you know your life and what you've done. I mean, I'd sit down and talk to you for hours on end, man. You know,
For sure, man.
I mean, we've been through some good times, some funny times, even times like you taking me to shows, and we've had some good laughs, good memories, everything. You know, it's all good, man.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
I'm glad I get to live another day and talk to you, and I'm on your podcast, which I really appreciate. And
Me too. And I'll send you all
definitely
the
get in touch
links and
with-
all the images and stuff. We get this up. We get it up in the next day. Do a little
Okay, that's
cleanup,
great.
Get the music in there, and man, put it out to the people.
You got it. I mean, this is an appropriate time to do it. I mean, pretty much a lot of people are staying at home and have nothing better to do, so they're looking for something to listen to, look at, whatever.
Yeah.
So now's a great time to do it, you know. But you should definitely, if you want to, definitely get in touch with John Brannon, or he's staying in Detroit. If you want to talk to my wife sometime, Scary Ellen, she's got some tales to tell.
That'd be wild.
She could tell you about early days. Oh, yeah, man. She saw the Stooges, New York Dolls. First time Kiss went out on tour. She was at the airport when Roxy Music got off the plane.
Damn.
All that stuff. Oh, yeah. She's got tales to tell. So, she knows.
I bet.
So,
I bet.
I appreciate the time, and guess what? I'm going to grab some lunch here. I'm getting hungry.
Yeah,
so,
that sounds like a good idea. Well, Tom Dark, I appreciate your time, man. We
no problem.
We'll definitely stay in touch, and we'll get this up as soon as possible. You are tuned in to Pushermania podcast, Real Talk with Matt Sonzala and Tom Dark. Finishing things off with a couple songs from Black Static Eye. Hit me up on the SoundCloud. Everything is Pushermania. SoundCloud.com/Pushermania. The Pushermania Network podcast on Apple Music, on everything. All them podcast platforms. Subscribe, like, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
see.